got one. I don't know what went through my head, I'm gonna be honest with you. Originally, I was supposed to be getting a Challenger, and I just saw this, and I honestly really bought it on an impulsive whim. But let me tell you, for it being $200 shipped to California, this actually doesn't suck. Now let's actually talk about it. Finally, the Nerf hobby has what we can officially call a hobby grade Stampede. It's just like our good old friend here, the Stampede. They're both open breech. That's really it. They're just both open breech. One of the biggest concerns that a lot of people had was just really just the quality on the shell itself. And to be honest with you, obviously if you twist the shell, you know, here and around there, especially in the spots in where, you know, where the pins are located, you know, it is going to creak a little. But in terms of the thickness of the shell and the quality of the shell itself, I actually like it. I've already dropped this thing a few times. There's no cracks, there's no shatters, no spider webbing of any sorts. Really, in terms of the shell quality, it gets a solid pass for me. There are a few spots in where it does, you know, look a little thin. But for what it's trying to achieve and where, you know, you have this that's reciprocating, you know, it's perfectly fine. In terms of, like, actually, like, you know, holding this and using it in the game, you know, it's not like Nerf or Dart Zone plastic where, like, you will hear it flex a lot during use. This is actually a lot more solid than people give it credit for. The other nice thing about this is that it actually hits pretty decent FPS numbers. On, you know, the included spring, if you buy this through Monkey Mods, you're gonna get it with two springs. You're gonna get it with the weak spring and the strong spring. The weak spring, you can expect about 180 FPS, 180, maybe sometimes 190. You know, those are the numbers to look after for, you know, if you put the weak spring. I'll be honest with you, I didn't bother with the weak spring one bit, because I immediately jumped for the stronger spring that they include in their 76s. With that, you looking more around, you know, 190 to 200. You will brush 200, but you won't hit it consecutively. But of course, as I was, you know, looking around with the springs and everything, one day I was bored, and I just kind of looked into my 76, and I thought to myself, you know, the way these springs are made, and in their certain shape, I wonder if you can fit K25 in it. So me, being the bored man that I am, and hopefully the camera picks that up correctly, you're going to see that the spring inside this now is green. It is a Silver Fox SF25 TC spring. It is slightly longer than the weak spring, but slightly shorter than the strong spring. However, you will be hitting 200 FPS a lot more consistently versus the included strong spring that's in it.
I think we ain't doing it.
I then printed a 5mm spacer and the 10mm one. The 10mm one, unfortunately, I didn't test, because as I put the 5mm spacer in this thing, it turns out that the little spring guide here actually is essentially 5mm thick, so, well, 5mm deep for the spring, so as I put the spacer in, it just basically sits flush. So now it's forever stuck in there. But I put it in there, and let me tell you, the numbers that I get from this, from SF25 with the 5mm spacer, well, I think I'll just rather show you right now. We're going to be using fresh Worker Gen 3 HEs, supplied by my homeboy, Little Nove. Let's get it. Alright, we're gonna do the exact same thing, but this time I'm just gonna let it rip with the full auto. Bam. Nice. 200, 212s. You know, all day, every day. You know, it'll dip a little bit down under to, you know, the 190s. I'm pretty sure if I were to continue fiddling around with this more on, you know, I could probably make it, you know, do 205 and higher consecutively without having to dip so hard. Ergonomics wise, I mean, it's okay, you know. I'm not gonna say this is the most uncomfortable blaster I've held. You know, fortunately for your offhand, You know, you don't have much to grab aside from here or maybe the mag well. This grip is a little too, you know, back for me. I would actually love it to have been more closer here. But of course, you know, people are already making relocation kits, you know, completely different body kits for it. As time goes on, I expect to see way more of those available in the market very soon. You know, and of course, if you buy your 76 through Monkey Mods, you get a buffer tube, which means you can stick one of these guys in. You just kind of stick it in there, you plug it in. I'm not gonna plug them in for the time being. You know, you can just plug it in, get your stock, you know, close it down, and your thing's ready to go. It does have a safety switch. You know, if the switch is, you know, if the switch is up, you know, it's hot. It's, you know, you now fire it, put it down, and it's on safety switch. I'm not really like one to care about blasters having safety switches, but in this case, it's actually really nice because there have been some cases in where, you know, I'll have the safety on and I will be just fiddling around with the trigger. So knowing that, hey, this isn't going to actually start firing or start to dry fire, you know, that's a nice little touch to it. Oh, and by the way, this battery that you see here, this is just like, you know, one you can get on Amazon. You know, 1300 milliamp hours. This will last you the entire day. You put this in there, you can use this 76 for the entire day. When you get this through, I think if you get this either through, you know, either through Monkey Mods or, you know, wherever the 76 is available, they come with Tamiya connectors. I'll be honest with you, you get these connectors. Everyone should do this. I don't care what is your preferred, you know, connector type. Get rid of the Tamiya. You don't want Tamiya. It's just not worth the hassle. These batteries, when you look them up online on Amazon, it will come with a Tamiya connector. It's perfectly fine. You're gonna see that mine actually is an XT30 because I converted mine to XT30. I didn't do XT60 or Deans just for the matter of, hey, you know, I want to keep it in the buffer tube stock, and there's a little bit of limited room in my stock itself, so of course for me the slimmer the better. The plunger tube assembly actually has this rubber gasket here, so that as it, you know, cycles back, you know, and it hits the shell, it's not a plastic on plastic impact. It's hitting on this rubber gasket. You know, even if you were to run the strong spring or run an SF25 with a 10 mil spacer, I don't really see shell breaking being a major problem. Again, the shell quality here is actually pretty dang good. Now that we got all the good things out of the way, let's start with the negatives. First and foremost, people don't seem to like is the trigger delay. For some reason, everyone who I've talked to about the trigger delay, they seem to believe that as I pull this trigger, it's going to fire a dart in 2 to 3 business days. The trigger delay really is not that bad. If you use the flywheel, that's basically the easiest way I can explain the trigger delay. It's not going to be like a stock Stampede or Rapid Strike Sloan where it's like no, it's a lot more snappy than people think. But of course, when you compare it to a Challenger, it's not as fast as the Challenger. And if you're in a panic situation, if you pre-plan your shot, you know, especially if you're behind cover and whoever you're trying to shoot is behind cover, you can gimp them. You can get them. I've done it a couple of times already with the Challenger, even before I put the optic in the rail. So I've already done it a few times, you know, and I can tell you right now, personally for me, coming from a speeder background with some flywheel experience, the trigger delay is not that bad. But this is where the 76 kind of saves itself. If you care that much about the trigger delay, not to worry. According to Monkey Mods, this is an airsoft motor. What does that mean? Well, you can basically pick any other airsoft motor in the market and basically swap that out. Theoretically. Some people are already trying to get their hands on airsoft motors to try this out. I am trying to do the same as well. I'm trying to go the brushless route. The motor specifically that I'm trying to go for my 76 is a Warhead brushless. Really, my biggest concern is just ensuring that it is going to fit in this compartment and I don't really have to do any modifications to the shell. If that's correct, then, you know, it would literally just be a drop-in motor. Now, keep in mind, even if you do switch the motor out to something like crazy fast, like a 60,000 RPM one, you know, do keep in mind that this is still going to have a form of delay because it's an open bolt. It's not like the Challenger in where the pusher's already up here. You know, it's open bolt. So it still has to take the time to send this forward, release, and then come back. Simply because of design, it is going to have a delay. This thing is long. And I mean really long. The stock is in position 1, as you will see here, okay? Because, you know, the buffer tube has 5 positions, and I keep it on the shortest 1000. I run the SBL with the worker stock fully extended. The 76 essentially dwarfs. If I were to, you know, put my SBL right on top of it, you really begin to see the size difference. Personally, for me, it's not the worst thing in the world. You know, mainly because I don't have to actually prime it, you know, it's motorized. But I fully get how, you know, some people, the second they hold it, they no longer are interested in this blaster. Because I already had some people where they held my 76, and they're like, yeah, it's too long, I don't want it, you know. And especially when you compare it to stuff like a Challenger, which is really the only other commercially available AEG at the moment, yeah, this is really long. Granted, in the 76 credit, this is way more consistent than a Challenger. The other bad thing, I don't think I need to say it out loud, you know, anybody who has played any game, you know, will automatically know what I'm gonna point at next. But, well, simply put, the silhouette of this thing isn't the most park friendly. You know, the Nerf hobby is one of those in where they try to steer away from railgun silhouettes. But at the same time, I can't help to say that, you know, that's slightly bit ironic because, well, you know. But again, I understand. I've already heard of some talk with some people and where they're actually planning to outright get rid of this, you know, this muzzle end, you know, and replace it with something more similar to like that of the SBL, where it's like an M-lock shroud. You know, that also extends it here. Because, oh yeah, another thing, another negative to this thing, it doesn't come with Picatinny rail right out the box. This is printed. I don't think Monkey Mod sells it yet. It would not surprise me if they do plan to stock it soon. But currently, you know, at the time of this video, Monkey Mods does not, you know, offer any railing for the 76. There are some printed ones available on Thingiverse. Same thing with the, you know, muzzle end. The only one that's available currently right now on Thingiverse didn't really catch my attention, which is why, you know, I'm still running the stock one. However, I am talking with some members of the hobby, you know, to get something done for it. You know, any future 76 owner or any designer, if you do plan to make a shroud for the 76, I highly recommend that somewhere along that design you put a dryland bushing, you know, like a bearing of some sort. Because another negative thing that the 76 has is that, well, and that's not me, I'm not pulling it forward, you know, I'm not activating that reciprocating, you know, part, you know, this is just me wiggling the barrel. And as you can hear, it does have wiggle room. Whether that wiggle room affects your accuracy, for me personally, no. I mean, I'm still able to hit a light switch across my house. You know, that light switch is guesstimated to be about 75 feet away. Another thing, 76 comes with circlips. I fucking hate circlips. I hate them with a burning passion. I don't have circlips on mine. As you can see on mine, these are just regular pins. You know, here, let me just pull the one out from the middle. These are just regular pins. These are M4 pins that I got from McMaster. Yes, they have the ring on the end, but, you know, just like what people did with the DCP Mark 1.1 pins, I'm in the process of just trying to design a little, like, cover for the pins that I will then, you know, remove the rings and put the cover on so that I still have some form to pull the pin out. When you do order pins for this, get M4 pins and be ready to drill out specifically this middle hole and this hole in the back on your 76. You don't have to go anything crazy, just drill it to somewhere close, you know, close to, you know, 4 mils in diameter. And you're not going to be removing a lot of material. Honestly, I really just did one quick pass on all the holes, you know, just put it on the drill, you know, and that seemed to have been way more than enough to get it to what I needed to do. It's not really so much of a negative, just more of a gripe. Whatever wiring that comes out of this 76, it's a little thin. So, you know, when you resolder your connector, be ready to either at least, you know, fold it, or if you want to do what I did, at some point in the buffer tube, assuming you're going to keep the buffer tube, at some point in the buffer tube, basically just strip it out, you know, give yourself, you know, a good length of that wire, and then just, you know, wrap it around a thicker gauge of wire. I can't really show it on camera, but what's actually on my XC30 connector is 16 gauge wire. I don't know what's actually being used in the 76, you know, throughout the rest of the show. But then in the middle of the buffer tube, you know, it goes from whatever is coming out of the 76, and it is wrapped around, you know, a stripped end of the 16 gauge wire, which I then soldered and then put heat shrink over. Of course, I'm going to put heat shrink over it. You know, this is a middle buffer tube. You could probably get away with just using the stock wiring regardless. The only reason why I am mentioning what I did and why I'm mentioning that is because when I did take this to LA, unfortunately, and again, I fully understand that this is my fault. You know, unfortunately, I had the connector actually snap off clean from the wire. Now, with everything that I had to say to the 76, would I recommend it? Yes. If I had to decide for you, I would totally go ahead and get a 76 regardless. Again, $200 shipped to California. It's more consistent than a Challenger. It hits harder than the Challenger with very minimal effort. Literally all you have to do is swap the spring and or put a spacer in it. And unlike the Challenger, this is simple. You know, it's just motor, it's just gearbox, and it's just your plunger tube. That's it. That's all it is. You know, no special features, no bolt lock, no nothing. Of course, for some people that's going to be a downgrade, but personally for me, that's perfectly fine. For the price, you know, this can easily become accessible. Honestly, I'm willing to say that this could very well be, you know, the hobbyist first AEG. Simple enough that they can work on, and, you know, with due time, because of the low cost, you know, hopefully that gets, you know, the current designers and future designers in the hobby to make cool stuff for it. Argus has already, you know, teased stuff, you know, about like a whole rebody kit in where it kind of makes this more like a mag and grip style blaster. I've already talked to a few designers in where they're planning to, you know, do completely change this, relocate the grip, you know, extended mag release. I do believe that, you know, once Monkey Munch restocks, and hopefully with this video, more people will buy it, which then means there will be more stuff out there for it. And, you know, hopefully, you know, this actually becomes a popularized AEG. I'm not saying that this is better than a Challenger. Really, that's only something you can answer yourself. But if I had to pick between this and a Challenger, well, I would pick this. But then if you know me, you also know that there's something else that I'm after. One day, though. One day.